And welcome back to The Bright Side. I am Pharmacist Ben. Thanks for joining us. 844-236-6010 is our number on The Bright Side. If you have questions, comments, success stories you'd like to share, if you just want to contribute to the conversation, we love hearing from you on The Bright Side. 844-236-6010 is our number. We'll get your calls next segment. At the bottom of the hour, we're going to talk to Pastor Mike Merrill, author of Why Do People Act That Way and What Can I Do About It? And we're going to talk specifically about the emotional response, collective and individual, that human beings are dealing with post-election. We're going to talk to Dr. Mike Merrill about what we can do about our emotional, our out-of-control, raging, and at the same time subtle and very common, unfortunately all too common, emotional reactions. Mike is was a panelist on the national television show Ask the Pastor for 18 years. We'll talk to Mike Merrill at the bottom of the hour and get your calls in our next segment. If you want to purchase longevity products, go to brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. You can purchase longevity products right off the website. You can also click on the Join the Team link if you want to sign up to join the Brightside Ben team, have a home-based business, and help spread the word about the power and importance of a good nutritional supplement program, especially in these corona-crazy times that we're living in. Now is the time to really focus on, number one, getting your financial health in order, and then number two, definitely not in that order, equally important, financial, probably physical health more important, of course, than financial health, but the longevity business opportunity, a home-based business can help you address your health as well as your wealth. If you are interested, please call 866-735-2470 or click on the Join the Team link at brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. All right, Mike Merrill coming up at the bottom of the hour. We'll get your calls next segment. We've been talking about this whole super fascinating aspect of lipids and fats and lipophilic and cell health. There's so many different ways that lipids play a role in how healthy we are. The digestive system, the lymphatic system, the health of the cell, the health of the gallbladder, the fatty vitamins, phytonutrients, phospholipids, the brain, membranes, subcellular organelles, the skin, the lymphatic system, exosomes, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, and the liposomes and skin care, taking care of your skin. There's just so many ways you could do just a show on just lipids, just on lipophilicity. And I've been talking about the importance of lipophilicity, of lipid health, of the distinction between water and fat. Since I first got privy to it in pharmacy school when I was working for Blistex, I realized all the good ingredients were that really made a difference in the skin were fat soluble. And I just started to figure it out, and like dissolves like, and it really is common sense if you understand some of the basics, not even a lot. Like dissolves like, oil and water don't mix. It's basically the idea that oil and water don't mix is pretty much the underlying concept behind the importance of lipids. Lipids form membranes. They form barriers because oil and water don't mix. Just remember, oil and water don't mix. That allows these lipids to form membranes and barriers. The body's mostly made of water, and without lipids, everything would just dissolve into each other. The fact that they don't mix creates barriers. And then over the course of time, these barriers became very complex. And over the course of time, evolution, these barriers developed a capacity to conduct energy and to hold on to energy. We call these barriers semiconductors. That's the technical name for them. It's the same thing that you have in an electrical circuit in your home, and your doorbell, and your computer. Anywhere where you have electrical energy, in order to utilize it, you have to have semiconduction. Semiconduction is how computers store information. Semiconduction means some things go through, some things don't go through. And by controlling what goes through and what doesn't, you get information. And that's what membranes do. And that's why they're so darn important. The cellular nature, the fact that the body's made up of cells, depends on fats. And if you think it's too much chemistry, just think of your gallbladder. Just think of the last time you had a hopefully, you haven't had one, but maybe you know somebody who had gallstones or some kind of gallbladder pain. That's what happens when the fat system goes awry. When you have your gallbladder out, you're going to have a messed up fat system. And now if you have it out, don't freak out about it. Just kind of make sure you take care of your fat digestion. Same with the intestine, and same with the pancreas, the liver. The key organs in the digestive system are organs that process fats. fats, fats, fats. And by the way, within a cell, you've got hundreds of thousands of tiny little subcellular structures with names like the Golgi Apparatus. Some of you may have heard that term. I like the way that sounds. It was named after a guy named Golgi, and they didn't know what it was. They called it an apparatus. Now we know that it's where proteins and fats are packed into little packages. Yes. Every time I think about it, every time I talk about it, I just get blown away. You've got a structure inside a cell within which proteins and lipids, fats, are packed into little balls that then get secreted out of the cell. Those little balls are called exosomes. We'll talk about that here in a minute. These exosomes are manufactured in a little tiny substructure inside a cell, and that substructure maintains its structure because of fats, because of lipids. There's another network there's kind of like a tubing inside the cell. A network of tubes is connected to the center, to the nucleus. It's called the endoplasmic reticulum. Reticulum just means network. Endoplasmic means inside. It's inside the plasma, inside the cell. And this is also made up of fats. The endoplasmic reticulum, I like saying that, endoplasmic, inside the plasma, inside the cell. Reticulum is the Latin word for network. This network of tubes inside the cell is where proteins are made and where fats are made out of building blocks. The nucleus itself is made up of a fatty membrane. The mitochondria is made up of a fatty membrane. And then within the cell itself, this is so unbelievable, within the cell, you've got cells. Yes, cells within cells. They're not as complex as the parent cell, but they're essentially the same thing. They've got a membrane. They got stuff inside them. They're called exosomes. These exosomes are actually produced in that Golgi apparatus, and then there could be thousands of them inside, maybe hundreds of thousands of them inside the cell, and they play a very, very important role in how cells talk to each other. It's so absolutely amazing how these exosomes work. I went to a dinner, a couple of a medical, like a talk. You do dinner and you sit and you listen to the doctor talking, and it was about exosomes. It was produced by a company, it was put on by a company called Direct Biologics that was talking to doctors and plastic surgeons and pharmacists like myself about their exosome product. Yes, drug companies and medical companies are actually using exosomes to take advantage of their communication properties for regeneration of joints especially, and also for skin, for anti-aging. All right, I'm Pharmacist Ben. Pastor Mike Merrill coming up at the bottom of the hour. We'll get to your calls next segment. 844-236-6010 is our number. We'll be back on the bright side right after this. All right, we're back on the bright side. I'm Pharmacist Ben. We'll have Pastor Mike Merrill coming up at the bottom of the hour. His book is Why Do People Act That Way, and What Can I Do About It? And he's going to talk specifically today about election or post-election anxiety. Dr. Mike's been on the program before. He's a pastor and a former panelist on Ask the Pastor for 18 years. We'll have Pastor Mike on at the bottom of the hour. I'll get your calls here in just a sec. Want to finish up talking? Well, I'm not going to finish up. We'll continue talking about this tomorrow. But just to kind of tie up the last loose end that we were talking about with this idea of exosomes. Exosomes are miniature cells. They're found inside the body. They're the latest darling, and you're going to hear more and more about them in the world of anti-aging and rejuvenating medicine. Because the theory is, and it's still a theory, and I'll tell you why I'm not a big believer in this idea, is by throwing in more exosomes into the bloodstream, the body will, if you put the right signaling molecules in the exosomes, your body will read those signals as growth and repair. And that gets to the fact that that's related to the fact that there are signaling molecules inside the exosome. What's a signaling molecule? Well, I'll talk about this tomorrow, but just in a nutshell, in an exosome, if you will, a signaling molecule is a molecule, and it could be a fat, it could be a protein, it could be a lipid, or it could be an amino acid, it could be even an electrolyte, minerals for that matter, or molecules, vitamins, vitamin A, hormones. These are all chemicals, molecules that signal something. They're information. they tell a cell to do something. They call them signaling molecules. And by putting them, signaling molecules that are associated with growth and repair in an exosome artificially from outside the body and injecting it into the blood, the theory is that you get activation. You can signal from the outside. It's hacking into the signaling system. There are some problems associated with exosomes, and exosomes are actually, number one, they're part of the disease process because they signal inflammation, but number two, they're also part of the healing process because they signal anti-inflammation. They're part of everything. They're especially important for the brain, by the way, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. And there's also a very important relationship between viruses and exosomes, and there are some people believe that sometimes what we think are viruses are really exosomes. Interesting. All right. 844-236-6010 is our number. Pastor Mike Merrill coming up at the bottom of the hour. Let's hit the phones and go to our friend in Idaho. Shauna, what's going on in Idaho?
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
We're neighboring Utah where they put a mandatory statewide for the mask. But I
heard that.
No.
Do you have a mandatory mask there too?
No, we don't here in Idaho. Our kids are going to school like normal. They don't wear a mask.
You don't hear much about a lot of things going wrong in Idaho. Although I've heard North Dakota and South Dakota. Idaho is an amazing place. I am a huge, huge fan of Idaho. And I've considered. I do like Boulder, but I've considered Boise. I hear Boise's really nice. What do you think?
We're okay over here at the east side too.
Yeah. Did I meet you at that dinner I went to, Shauna? Real quick. Did I meet you at that dinner that I went to a couple of years ago? I guess 5 years ago, probably now.
I have met you 3 times, and I just yes, you just emit a lot of knowledge and light. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Takes one to know one. Remember that.
Well, I believe we have to focus on what we want instead of what we don't want. Like race car drivers, they're taught to not look at the wall. They need to look at the track. So here we are focusing on the mask. How do we start to educate instead of mandate? I want to learn what a virus, it really works, and then how our immune system fights it. So how do you do that?
Viruses,
do you have a website that tells all that?
No.
And then I want to hear it in a nutshell, how you would say it.
You want to hear what?
I would like to hear it in a nutshell, how you would educate people.
And the most important thing to know.
You are on the radio, but I mean when you meet someone that we just say, guys, we need to educate, not mandate.
Yeah, the most important thing to know about viruses is they're not enemies. That's the most important thing. They're not enemies. That's there's a few viruses that are pathological, but the vast majority, it's not fair to say to think of viruses as the enemy the way we do when there's only a few of them that are pathological, and there's tremendous protective mechanisms that we have built into our body. They do get through, and this one's a novel one, and I don't even know anything. I only know what I'm told and what I read in the paper, and and I don't believe much of that. So I can tell you from a biological standpoint what viruses are, but as far as this one in particular, I don't know enough about it, although the fact that it's novel, theoretically, is making it more of a problem. You understand what I mean by novel? It's one that we haven't really seen, something like that. They call it the novel coronavirus. And that's really what's accounting for its extra virility, even though whether there's really extra virility or not, you only know it from what you read in the papers, and what you see in the news. So I don't even know that. I'm just very skeptical about it, and that's why, as with all things, you have to be your own health authority. You have to be a sovereign. My friend Curtis always talks about sovereignty. You have to be about sovereign. I know you're listening out there, Curtis, so I'm giving you props for that. Sovereignty. You want personal sovereignty. How do you do that? By strengthening your God-given immune system. Get it? That's the most important thing. Viruses aren't bad, and we have ways to protect ourselves from them. This one's a little worse because it's novel, but you still have ways to do it. Why is McDonald's the only restaurant that's open when there's lockdown? Why are all the restaurants closing about McDonald's? And, I'm just picking on McDonald's, but Domino's. What's up with that? Yesterday we talked about, or last week we talked about the importance of fats, inflammatory fats, and the immune system. Inflammatory fats are one of the, enjoying lots of French fries and lots of McDonald's and lots of bacon is one of the best ways to get the coronavirus, to get COVID. You want to guarantee yourself COVID? Just eat bacon all day. Go to McDonald's 3 times a day. Guaranteed.
Yeah.
Not guaranteed. You know what I'm saying?
Or eat all of our packages that make noises, and we have
the packages that make noises. Right. But no, we want to wear a mask, and we'll eat and we'll still drive through. We'll pull the mask down to eat our Big Mac.
Yeah.
And that's this, but it's up to us though. We can't make fun of anybody. I mean, it's funny, but we can't pick on anybody.
Educating the other people that
you put the information. You go fishing. You throw your line out there and see who bites. That's it. That's how you do it. That's how I do it. I want to get one more call in, Shauna. Thanks, though. I'm feeling you. I know what you're saying. So throw your fishing line of information out there and see who bites. All right?
See you.
Thanks, Shauna. Okay, bye. All right, Robert in Nevada. What wise thing do you have to say today? You always have good stuff for me.
I try. I promise nothing's viral, so we'll talk about that.
Okay.
That part alone.
I want to go viral. How do I go viral?
Well, maybe, metaphorically. So anyway, Ben, I've got a problem with my feet, dry, scaly skin.
Yes,
so
not uncommon. Very common.
Yeah.
Okay, the feet are the extremities. Yeah, check this out. And this is a very important point because it goes to show you how closely the bloodstream is related to dry skin. We all put moisturizers on our dry skin, right? But because we don't address the blood problem, the circulatory problem, all disease is cell disease. It doesn't say, I have dry skin, I'm just going to put a moisturizer on. No, that's from the 19th century. Oh, I'm going to put a moisturizer on. That's from the 1860s. That's from even before, really. That's from Cleopatra. She put alligator fat on her skin. So you got to...
Real quick. On your website, cucumber heel therapy or baby foot, which one do you suggest?
On my website? Which one? Yeah. I know what you're... Why don't you send me an email, Robert? It's too much. I got to take a break. Ben@ksco.com. All right, Pastor Mike Merrill coming up next segment. We'll be back on the bright side right after this. We are back on the bright side. I'm Pharmacist Ben. We're on the air Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 Pacific, 10 to 11 Central, and all day, 24/7 on brightsideben.com and benfuchsarchives.com. You can purchase longevity products at brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, and criticalhealthnews.com. And don't forget to take a look at our Truth Skin Health products, all formulated for healing the skin. And by the way, Robert, if you're still listening, Omega-6 Healing Cream is one of the best diabetic foot products you'll ever use. You don't need very much. It's a burn cream. So if you're listening out there, check out our Omega-6 Healing Cream at truthtreatments.com. And all our other truthtreatments.com are available at Truth Treatment. All our other Truth Treatments are available at truthtreatments.com. And check out our now going on 1,400 4- and 5-star reviews at truthreview.com, truthreview.com. Okay, I'm looking forward to speaking to our guest. Pastor Mike was a panelist on the national television show Ask the Pastor. He's also the author of a book called Why Do People Act That Way and What Can I Do About It? Pastor Mike is super positive, and in this crazy time with the 1-2 punch of politics and health that are going on in the world today, I can think of no better guest to have on to help us alleviate our collective anxiety than Pastor Mike Merrill. What's up, Pastor Mike?
Hey, how are you, Ben? It's a beautiful day out here in Rochester, New York. I'm loving it entirely.
I love it. I haven't, November 9th, you don't get a lot of beautiful days, as you pointed out, in Rochester, New York. I'm from upstate New York myself, and I'm glad I'm from upstate New York. Nothing personal. So, so this must be like a halcyon times for a pastor who specializes in anxiety or alleviation of anxiety. You must be plenty busy these days, correct?
To some degree, yes. When I did my doctoral work in counseling and emotional theory, part of my assignment was to train people in my congregation in the concepts that I have developed and the techniques that I use. So I trained 30 people, and my counseling load basically went to zero because so many people were facilitated. They were equipped and trained to help their peers, their friends, their family, people in the area actually come to resolution of things that were complex and they're experiencing difficulty with. Any of the 5 emotions, my theory is there's 5 emotional systems. Any of the 5 can be good. Any of the 5 can be bad. And it really is not it's not the nature of the emotion itself. It's what it does to you and what do you do with it. Those are really the two critical questions. The 5 emotions, the words I use are acceptance, exposure, empowerment, depletion, and celebration. Those are the 5 systems. We have mild feelings in those systems, we have moderate feelings, and we have very intense or passionate feelings in those systems.
Acceptance, exposure, depletion, celebration, and empowerment.
And
Did I say those right?
Empowerment.
Empowerment. I like the celebration one. Let's talk about that one first, okay?
So celebration...
Is there a dark side to that? Is there a dark side to that first? Okay,
no,
go ahead.
there is. When you say dark side, does it do things to people as they experience excessive or inappropriately mild emotions in the celebration system? And then what do you do with it? That's going to become the question. So let's take celebration at a very mild. You don't put much energy into it. It's very sedate in your life, in a person's life. As they perceive the world around them, their response is happiness or contentment. They feel good. When it grows more intense, they may be generous. They may feel celebratory. They may be excited. And when they get to an extremely high level, lots of energy going into that emotion. It could be manic. It could be over the top. It could be party-oriented that doesn't stop. And so the difference between being ecstatic about something and being happy about something is one of degree. Now, the question is, when a person observes the reality around them and their part in it, they may be ecstatic. So let's just take the recent election. The recent election is Biden apparently is the winner. We don't really quite have the data and facts all in yet. But there are people who are excessively ecstatic. They don't know what's going to happen in the future. This could be one of the best presidents we've ever had. It could be one of the worst.
Right.
So when a person becomes ecstatic about something they didn't really do materially, they're over the top, it may be taking over their life, and their exaltation now has a drive in them that is overpowering everything else in their life. That would be dangerous for them.
So hang on to that thought here, because you're a pastor, right? Can you have that kind of... So there's a pathological state there, pathological angle to this ecstasy that's almost manic, as you say. So can you have that about God, like a religious person?
Oh, sure. There are all kinds of cults that depend on that to build people up to a fever pitch, and they will do things in celebration, in that mode. I put generosity, graciousness, thanksgiving, those feelings are in there as well. It causes a person to shine, to give, to spread. So when you have, let's say, charismatic-oriented churches, they will be oriented towards very intense celebration. People can become addicted to the celebration to the point that they're not willing to deal with things that need to change in their lives. They're not willing to address extremely challenging matters that really are in their hand. So they just drop that and go for the celebration, the praise, the exaltation, and ignore everything else, because now there's a place for that. I'm not saying that that's wrong to do. When that becomes overpowering in one's life, that can be dangerous if it leads to an ignoring of essential matters that are not within that area. So it can be good, it can be bad. What's it doing to you, and what do you do with it? Those become the critical questions.
Tell me about depletion. How does that work?
Depletion is when your tanks have been expended. It happens every single day. When you get hungry, you get thirsty, you're tired, you need to refill those tanks. You can refill it with, let's say, your hunger tank. You can refill your hunger tank with sugar. You can have all your Halloween candy in one day. You can drink sour milk and upset your stomach. If you're thirsty, you can fill yourself with wrong things that are damaging. You can fill them with right things in balance that are very good.
Bad habits. Would you say like addictions and bad habits? Would that be part of the depletion system?
It can be. The depletion is a natural function that is designed in us. I believe it's God-given, that allows us to have quieter periods in which we restore and we relax. So we've just gone through an extremely intense political season. A number of people have been very active in the political arena. Some people on the losing side of any campaign are utterly exhausted today. They've expended all of their...
Hang on to that thought. We got a commercial coming, Mike. Hang on to that thought, okay? We'll talk about the depletion system and more when we come back on the bright side with Pastor Mike Merrill. Okay, we're back on the bright side. I am Pharmacist Ben. We're talking to Pastor Mike Merrill. And Mike, before we went to break, we were talking about this depletion system. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm hearing each system is on a continuum. And there's a baseline where you want to be, like a middle place where you want to be, where it's healthy state, balance, if you will. And then there's there's extreme negative and extreme positive. Is that correct?
I wouldn't use that particular language. Here's why. Okay. The continuum is accurate. We have mild, we have moderate, and we have intense emotion. The reality is a mild emotion is not automatically better than an intense, passionate emotion. When you have your first child, you are celebratory in extreme. When you watch that happen, you see life begin. First breath, eyes open, gurgling sound, nursing at the mother's breath. You are so filled with joy. There's no words for that.
It's appropriate, is what you're saying. There's a context where it's appropriate.
When a person sees that and then says, "Oh, I got to take a phone call," you go, "Wait, your joy here is like way too low.
Yeah.
Why don't you have more?" So having really low emotion is not necessarily automatically a good thing. The question is, what is it doing to you, and what do you do with it? That changes the whole perspective from, I'm feeling really intense, that's bad. I'm feeling very intense anger in the area of empowerment. Anger in and of itself is neutral. It's neither good nor is it bad. There were times when Jesus became enraged at what was happening from the religious elites manipulating those who had no standing whatsoever, overturning the money changers' tables, whipping people out of the temple.
Yeah.
He was furious. Is that wrong? No. In that situation, it was right.
It's situational. It's situational. You have a continuum for every situation, don't you think?
Absolutely, it is. And that will even change within the situation itself.
Yeah.
Anger, the area of empowerment, is about gaining change or domination or power. So your child is being disobedient in a mild way. They're not handling their milk very well, and they drop their glass and it spills all over. You can get mad about that if you want. Fine. But you don't get excessively mad about it. But your child, without really understanding, is riding their bike out to the street, and you scream at them, and you race with incredible power, and you grab a hold of them before they're hit by a car. That level of empowerment is right in that moment. Then you calm down because you got the change or the outcome that you wanted, and that's appropriate. So even within moments of a situation, your emotion can escalate, it can de-escalate, and always we come back to the question, what's it doing to you, and what do you do with it? Now, if we ask that question, what's it doing to you, and the person says, my very intense emotion or my very mild emotion is helping me in this way, great. You don't need to resolve it. Go with it. That's wonderful. But if a person says, it is eating me alive, it's taking over my life, I don't know what, I'm not responding the way I should, I don't love my wife the way I should love her, I don't love my kids, I don't love my job, I don't love my church, it's too mild. How do I get more emotion back into my life? It's destroying me not having enough. So now, instead of saying, let's tailor your emotion down, then we say, let's tailor your emotion up. And that can be just as destructive as having too much emotion. So the issue is never, do you want less emotion in your life? Do you want to stay moderate all the time, have no highs and no lows? There are some people that very mild emotional changes. They're very steady. That's the way they're designed. They can go into any situation just as calm as can be, no big ups, no big downs. And they're content being that way. I'm not going to go in and say, you really need to have a spike of fear in your life. You really need to have some more celebration in your life. I don't say that because they're saying, I'm good this way and it's not bothering me whatsoever. So we come back always to the two vital questions. What is this doing to you, and what are you doing with it? That becomes the critical question to then look at how do we resolve, how do we intensify, how do we alter what's actually happening in your situation.
Okay, so all of these seem like they have that the main problem that we have in our culture today would have a connection to all five of these distinctions that you've made. Very brilliant distinctions, by the way. Yes. So we're all dealing with anxiety, right? So anxiety has a celebratory aspect, the way I see it, correct me if I'm wrong, it has an aspect, every one of these is reflected within the anxiety, or anxiety is reflected within every one of these, depending on how you look at it.
I put anxiety as an emotional experience into the area that I call exposure. Exposure is about feeling unsafe or insecure. Now, when one of the most critical words that I listen for as a counselor is what I call the ever, never, always language. When a person says, everyone is this way, it's always happening, it's never this way, they use excessive language. I know as a counselor, they're lying. They're lying to themselves.
Or they're not scientific. They're emotional. They're not scientific. They're not rational.
And,
they're operating.
And so go ahead.
I say they're operating emotionally.
That's true, and they're not processing emotion into their motivations and into their behavior. So when you look out at today's world and say coronavirus is out there, politics is out there, on and on, these economics, job loss, and where I'm actually sitting, my life hasn't changed from last Tuesday to this Tuesday. It hasn't changed at all. But I can be terribly frightened at my perceptions of change, even though the change has not happened yet. I can say everyone's getting coronavirus. When I actually discuss it, I know 3 people that have coronavirus, but they're very important to me. So my language is everyone is getting it. Nobody's exempt. This is terrifying.
That's a red flag.
And my
That's a red flag.
Ratchets up, but not based on reality. It's based on my perception of reality. So when I listen for that, I'll ask for permission. Can we talk about your perception that everyone is under total stress? There are people who are not under total stress because I've lived almost 70 years, so I've been through incredibly difficult pandemics. I've been through wars. I've been through presidential changes. I've been through Democratic leadership. I've been through Republican leadership. I've been through Richard Nixon. I mean, everything, everywhere. So I look at that and think, on the far side of this, we're going to evaluate this a little bit differently than we do right now because we don't have enough information. Particularly, we don't know what's going to happen. So since I have learned that, I can condition myself to say there are many things I don't yet know that I will, and I do not need to be overly anxious. I can be anxious, and I can deal with my security sense of safety But I have strategies to do that. So instead of having that take over my life and I am fraught with terror, I have learned how to be anxious without being overly anxious. That really is the key. For me, I want to be balanced. When a person says, no, I don't want to be balanced, I'm a warrior in the Army, and I'm in Afghanistan, and I am on night patrol, and I have to be utterly vigilant all of the time, I would say, go for that. That is going to save your life. But for somebody who's sitting in their house saying, I have the same feelings as a warrior in the midst of a battle on a daily, moment-by-moment basis, and I am overwhelmed. It is eating me alive.
Yeah.
And I say, do you want to talk about that? Do you want to resolve that? Yes, I do. Now we can work. The soldier doesn't need to. The person sitting in their house does.
Do you find that people will say it but don't mean it?
Oh, yeah, sure. Like, to inflame. A person who loves victimhood, they're addicted to victimhood, they will create excessive situations or overly mild situations so that others will say, oh, you poor dear, can I hold your hand?
I want to know. I want to know how you handle that. But you know what? We're out of time, unfortunately. So
another show.
Another show. Why do people act that way, and what can I do about it? You're always very interesting there, Pastor Mike. Will you stay on the line? Stay on the line after this?
I will, yeah.
Okay, good. All right, that was Pastor Mike Merrill. Why do people act that way, and what can I do about it? You can email him, mike@grippingreality.com. That's all the time we have for today on The Bright Side. Thanks for listening. I'm Pharmacist Ben. Have a wonderful, beautiful, awesome, spectacular day. We'll talk to y'all later, folks. Bye for now.